Hello there, I am Zaku and today I'm going to talk about another board game adaptation of a digital game once again. I talk about them in reference to titles like Bloodborne and Frostpunk in my video about Slay the Spire, and in another movie I showed you Blasphemous. The main idea in these materials was as follows. To transfer the game from the screen to the board well, you have to transfer its spirit to the table and components. I also mentioned then that the Glass Cannon Unplugged specializes in this type of games. So today I wanted to present you the new product, Apex Legends. A game that we received from GCU, played and already formed our first impressions, which I also intend to present you today. To start with, what is the original Apex and what is the Apex Legends board game about? Digital Apex is a first-person shooter published by Electronic Arts, in which the gameplay is based on the Battle Royale mode. Players are divided into 2 or 3 person teams and jump out of the plane into the battle arena. Their task is to collect weapons and ammunition, lie around, and treat members of the opposing team with it. The battle arena gradually decreases during the match, narrowing the playing field and forcing the teams to interact more. What distinguishes Apex from other games of this type are legends. Each player takes on the role of character, with a unique set of abilities, and this will allow to attack or avoid enemies better, but also support their own team members more effectively. And if I were to describe the board game, I will have to say practically the same thing. Here, however, we have a physical version with 3-dimensional battlefield and several characters to choose from. So now I will talk about the rules in shortened version, enough for you to know what it's all about. The game offers several different modes, but let's take a look at the standard one, Battle Royale. Here, players are divided into 2 teams, in 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 legends. The goal of the battle is to eliminate all enemy legends at least once or to gain a specific number of points for eliminations. After choosing the game map and placing buildings and terrain pieces, players choose legends and divide into 2 teams, blue and red team. Before jumping into the game, the legends choose borders at the entrance tile. Each side of the tile will provide some initial gear and determine the effect of entering the board. When all legends are on the map, we can start the match, always with the red team. The battle phase consists of 8 rounds, in which each team activates their legends to move around the board, attack opponents, use special abilities and collect equipment scattered around the map in supply bins. Between certain rounds, the energy field on the board shrinks, forcing players to run to the center of the board and narrow their actions to avoid damage. In their activations, each legend has several options when it comes to actions to perform. They can spend 2 action points on them. For example, they can move to an adjacent field, also diagonally, or climb higher level building. This provides better line of sight and position for shooting and defense. Another action can affect elements of the environment. Players can open supply bins, which provides supply cards with equipment tokens and new weapons. Each player has a limited space, so each time we have to make a choice what to put in our equipment. Opened crates will be used and it will be not possible to look at them again. The next and probably the most important action will be firing a shot. And here we will stop for a moment. To fire a shot, we must define the target in our line of sight. Apart from being able to draw an uninterrupted line between our figures, we must check different levels. Enemies will use covers and walls to hide from our sight. The line of sight is described in detail with many examples on several pages in the rulebook. And secondly, we must check statistic on our weapon card. Each weapon has a range in which it is most effective. If the enemy is standing closer or farther away, a penalty will be added on the shot test. Next values on the card determine the final result that must be obtained for a hit to be successful, and how many cards, how many bullets we will have in one shot, and how much damage the weapon deals. Equipment and gear tokens attached to this weapon can improve values of this shot. So the player draws as many cards as the weapon card specifies and places them on accuracy track, starting above the value of 0. If some equipment abilities provide us with stability, we can start placing cards on the left, providing a bonus modifier. Next to that, some weapons have a recoil. In this case, subsequent cards are played at intervals from each other. Generally, the rule here is very simple. The farther away to the right side of the track a given card is, the greater the accuracy penalties it has. We must apply the accuracy modifier from the track to each card and any bonuses from equipment or skills. If the final value reaches the value of the shot on our weapon card, we get a hit from such a card. Sometimes, however, the symbols on the card will determine the automatic hit or miss. If, for example, our character is standing on a different level from a target, or when the target is hiding behind a partial cover. If the hit was successful and on the card we have a critical hit symbol, the weapon deals additional damage. And so we check each card and assigning damage. First, it should be subtracted from the energy shield and excess damage from the life points of shooted legend. The eliminated hero disappears from the board, and in his next activation, he can return next to the respawn place and continues the fight, but opposing team scores 1 point. And as you remember, it is related to one of the goal to victory. So what to do to repair our shields and heal from injury? For this, you will need to use the right items, various syringes and batteries, but we can also use grenades. They work a bit differently than weapons and shooting. They can be more unpredictable, but equally dangerous. But I haven't mentioned cards yet. Each character has their own cards of features and abilities, which they can play to boost their actions, but also as reactions, before or after the opponent's shot. Legends also have their own gimmicks, additional elements related to their skills. Some of the characters create an energy defense field, smoke screens, others scatter portals through they can move, and one legend can send a bunch of ravens to help them in battle. We will mark everything with appropriate tokens on the initiative and round tracks. And this is how we move around the board and buildings, shoot at each other and use equipment cards and skills to finish off the enemy team as quickly as possible. And above all, this is just one of the available game modes. We can play a quick deathmatch in which we use predefined sets of weapons and equipment without worrying about ammunition. We can play a capture the flag mode. There is also a mode in which players receive a role for their characters and have to defend their leader, but also a boss mode, in which 4 legends try to kill 2 of the characters, but these 2 will be heavily armed with equipment and cards. And this was a quick look at the Apex Legends. Of course, I haven't touched on all the rules, skills, equipments, upgrades here. There is simply too much to discuss everything in one neat material, so I think I can move now to summarize my first impressions after playing Apex. First of all, the presence of everything this on the table. This game looks. Miniatures made of transparent plastic or 3D buildings are just great. In general, transferring the entire game to 3 dimensions introduces a different level to the gameplay itself, which I will also mention, although there will probably be people who will complain about the clarity of what's happening on the board through these buildings that covers some elements from our line of sight. In order to see everything and often to calculate the range of a shot, we have to look at the board from a bird's eye view. It didn't bother me, but I know people who complain about the clarity in something like Ankh because the figures are too big. So Apex won't be a game for such a people, but let's be clear, it doesn't bother me at all. And next thing about the components. The game insert is designed in such a way that everything can be prepared quickly and efficiently. And the buildings are just 2 pieces of cardboard that we slide into each other. It is true that we won't be able to set up everything in 5 minutes, it will be longer, but it's not as unpleasant experience as setting up a heavy Euro game with million components, like sticking to the Glass Cannon games, Frostpunk. And what about learning the game itself? I must say that I went through this very smoothly, without watching any playthroughs or how to play on the internet. I think also without any major problems. The only thing that definitely got me stuck when I was learning the rules was the line of sight and calculating blind spots. If we are standing on a building and there is an obstacle between two legends. Apart from that, and about learning the game, it seems to me that at first glance you can choose the deathmatch model with ready sets of weapons and equipment. This way we will learn how a given weapon works, and we will not have to worry about ammunition or constant selection of new guns. So, overall, there are plenty of elements here. There are a lot of effects and modifiers for the combat, lots of tokens, but everything is easy to learn and should not pose a major problem. And next thing, the mechanics and gameplay. I will say this. For me personally, Apex is a bit of combination of a board game and a battle game. It is true that there are no dice rolls here, but this constant calculation of range and line of sight, it gives me kind of a battle board game feeling. And I'm not saying that it is bad for me. I like the tactics of our movement and positioning in good places using roofs and covers. I like the three-dimensionality and multi-leveled nature of the map. And not only for visual reasons, but also because of the impact on the gameplay itself. I liked shooting mechanics. I wouldn't have thought of how to transfer something as simple as the recoil of the weapon in shooting games. In this board game it was done very well, and it is true that the bigger the series we release towards the enemy, the less often we will hit. And of course, how we put together our weapons, searching through supply bins to find better equipment, accessories and ammo for cool weapons, this is all great. It gives me a little feeling like in digital games. Sometimes you have to walk around the map and rummage to find something better. But what I probably liked the most in Apex are asymmetric legends with their special skills. Each character works differently, each is better at something different. If we want to end another legend as quickly as possible, we turn on the Bloodhound Hunter mode, send ravens to the victim and shoot at it as much as we can. With Gibraltar, we can tactically wait until the playing field is sufficiently reduced and impose an energy shield on ourselves, and then we call an airstrike that will cover most of the board. There are characters good at healing the team. There is also a droid that uses hooks and ropes to move faster. There are also more characters with more gimmicks and special skills from the additional content for Apex. Each team can create unique connections and synergies between legends, so each game can be different, even on the same map. And we have 12 predefined maps in the basic Apex, but of course we can put it together as we want to. And in the end, let's add many different game modes to this, and you can already see for yourself that the replayability here is really very high. And another thing, once we get to know Apex, played a few times, the game becomes dynamic. We more or less know to how position ourselves and what's work well. It works quite neatly and quickly, but as for the board game, you can throw away any statements that the feelings from this board game are exactly the same as from the digital one, or that we mechanically do the same thing here and on the screen. No, this is a board game. It will never be as dynamic as the original. Sometimes we jump into digital battle royale just for a moment, to have a match and leave. Here you have to make an appointment and set aside a few hours along with preparing and putting all this together. So I can't say that all impressions from both versions of this game are the same, because they ain't. So does that mean that the board game is worse? No. I will honestly say that I'm not a very big fan of digital battle royale games, and I will rather sit down to a board game than to a screen. From sitting down to the screen I have Baldur's Gate, Hollow Knight and all kind of Souls games. So will Apex be a game that can be recommended to someone who doesn't play board games at all, but he loves the original? Well, I would seriously consider it. You can try, but you know, these are the two different worlds. However, if someone is a fan of this IP and is involved into our hobby, is a board gamer, they will certainly appreciate how the spirit and elements from original Apex have been transferred to the board. Personally, I liked this Apex very much. Of course, I still have to play the other modes and get to know all the legends. Additional content will also come soon, so I will definitely make use of it. And now I already know that for me it will be a game to play with my buddies, with a beer, you know, to have a good time with shooting to each other. And that's all, folks. That was my impressions of Apex, and that's how the game presents. Tell me what do you think about this game in the comments, and remember to leave a thumb up and subscribe my channel if you like this video. Thank you for being here, and see you in the next movie. Bye.